Okay, we are live. We're live, Celeste.
All right, thank you, Zach. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of What's the Tea? For those who don't know yet, we do an episode every single Tuesday. Either it's live or it's pre-recorded. And in these episodes, we will interview somebody from a different department in our agency. So we are from South Suburban Family Shelter. And South Suburban Family Shelter offers services to people who have been impacted by domestic violence. So today I have the pleasure to introduce to you all our Housing Programs Manager, Rebecca Thomas. Hi, Rebecca, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good. And thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule. We know you have a lot going on right now. So today we're going to be talking about the Rapid Rehousing Program. But before we do, let's make sure everybody has their tea. Get everybody a couple seconds to tune in. So go ahead and warm up your tea, join us. We'll be talking about the Rapid Rehousing Program, which is one of our newer programs. So I am going to allow Rebecca to go ahead and talk to you about that. Now that we have a little bit more people joining in, let's talk about your background. If you can tell us just a little bit about yourself, Rebecca, and what inspires you to work within this agency.
Sure. So I've been with South Suburban Family Shelter now for about 5 years. And back when I went to college, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what the field was actually called. And then I went to my freshman year, I had a social work 101 class. And that's when I decided that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I pursued that as my major. And it was actually in that first year that I met somebody that volunteered at a local domestic violence shelter. And they said, being in the social work program, it's great to get experience through volunteering. So I started volunteering there. And then shortly after, I got a job there as a crisis advocate. And I worked there throughout my 4 years in college. And then when I moved back to Illinois, I looked for jobs in that field, but I ended up doing mainly case management and mental health until I was able to further my education and get a master's. And then I actually applied for several positions at South Suburban Family Shelter and finally got one.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's good to hear. A lot of us kind of just landed here and then ended up liking it without really knowing how we got here. But it seems like you've had a passion for domestic violence. This is what you were looking for, and this is what you want to do. So that's really, really interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about the Rapid Rehousing Program and what it is?
Sure. So like you said, it's a newer program. We just finished our first year of our grant. And basically the goals of the program are to help those that are homeless due to fleeing domestic violence by assisting them with rent and other supportive services and resources to get them back on their feet and in a position of financial stability, and to get to a place where they'll be able to pay for rent on their own. So we do that by providing them with case management and other services that help them gain those skills that they'll be ready to take over rent once we are no longer working with them. So that process looks basically like we assist them to find housing in the community, and then we assist them by paying a portion of the rent every single month. And their portion that they pay into it gradually increases over time in the program, so that once they have been with us for about a year or so, they will eventually be at that point of paying almost, if not 100% of their rent. So it's not such an extreme shock to go from not paying anything to all of a sudden paying all of this money for rent. It's kind of a gradual progression while they're learning the skills that they need to be more confident in doing that independently.
Wow, that's great help to have somebody or an agency helping you, especially when you're in a situation like this where for a lot of people it can be really difficult to get back on their feet. So a lot of people, they don't want to leave this relationship because they know how difficult it's going to be. So knowing that there's something out there that can actually help you and is there for you is really amazing. It's really amazing everything that you do. So in a previous episode, we had Zach and Letitia talk about Sanctuary, which is our transitional housing program. So these programs, I think, are a little bit similar, but can we talk about the differences in requirements for this program as it compares to the transitional housing?
Sure. So one of the main differences in the programming, the programs, is that transitional is site-based, so it's all in one location, whereas rapid rehousing, it's different residences all over the communities. So with transitional, there's more restrictions as far as how to be eligible to be in the program. The contract that we have is specifically to serve victims of domestic violence that are literally homeless, that identify as female, and that have children in their custody. So that's very different from rapid rehousing because it can be individuals of any gender. They do not have to have children. It can just be a single person that we are assisting. And they do not have to be literally homeless right before coming to our program. So they can be living in a domestic violence shelter. They can be staying with a friend or family member temporarily, or they can still be living with their abuser and in the process of trying to plan to leave that home and go to a safer situation.
Okay. That's really interesting that you mentioned that they could still be living with their abuser and trying to flee. And so what makes me think, when I think about a situation like that, I wonder what procedures are used to serve their needs safely.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Obviously, that's our primary concern, is their safety throughout this entire process, regardless of where they are. However, it is trickier working with clients that are still living with their abuser because we have to take other factors into account to make sure we're being extra cautious. So we definitely do safety planning with every individual, and it just depends on their specific situation. So we really try to focus on their comfort level and what their reality is. So within that safety planning, we identify safe ways to communicate. So we always make sure that, is this a safe number to call you on? What are the safe times to call you? We try to go over a very strict schedule to make sure we don't deviate from that. If this, if the abuser is at work at specific times, it's the only times that we can have that contact. Ensuring that whatever email address they give us, nobody else has the password to. So really just trying to have those conversations, even things they might not have thought of. They'll say, yeah, I've had this phone number forever. You can call me on this. And, we'll say, well, what about leaving a voicemail? Yeah, it's no problem. But is the password something that they might be able to figure out? Well, yeah, now that I think about it, it is. So we just try to have those open conversations to try and cover all of our bases and really stick to that plan. We also work with them on providing, all the hotline numbers, resources, in case they do need to flee immediately, before we can get them housed. We want them to have access to all of those resources. And we also try to identify the safe people that they can go to last minute if they need support or to stay there safely or to keep items with a friend or family member for when they do leave. So it's just a lot of planning and talking through what works for them and what they're comfortable with.
I'm sure it seems like a whole lot is going on all at once.
Mm-hmm.
It must take a lot of people. May I ask how many people are in your team?
3.
Okay. I would have expected more.
Yeah, we have.
I'll do a whole lot.
Yeah, it's myself. I'm the manager, and then I have my supervisor Carol. So she oversees the program as well. And then within the immediate program is our housing specialist and our case manager.
Okay. So you all work together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So there's a lot of services that are offered here in the Rapid Rehousing Program. I'm very excited to be here and providing everybody with this information.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about like what the expectations are? You mentioned that your clients are, I don't want to say the word expected, but again, usually within a year, they should be able to pay their own rent. So would this be a kind of an expectation or a deadline, or what other types of expectations do you have?
Yeah, so we just well, basically we have the overall expectations that they are entering this program because they feel they can benefit from it. They want to utilize the services and, supports that we have to offer. So we do expect that they are engaged in the program. They are following up with the case manager and having those conversations. They are taking the active steps to reach the goals that they identified are important to them. Whether it's employment goals or working to increase income, whatever that is, it's their goals, and they're the ones that are kind of the driving force to be successful in the program. We're just there as the support. So we really want them to take the lead on that and be taking those active steps instead of, hoping maybe we'll do it for them, or, because we're not here to tell anybody what they need to do or what they need to work towards. We want them to do what they need to for themselves, and just best support them how we can. So we do expect them to be actively engaged throughout the programming and let us know what they need from us as well. So when it comes to that rental portion, that's a big part of it too. We expect that they are straightforward with us on their budget and what their income is, so that we can come up with realistic portions that they pay versus what the program pays. And that they are, again, a big part of that conversation of what's realistic for you, what's realistic for us, and what's a good goal for us to be working towards. And just to make sure we have that teamwork throughout, so that we don't get to the end and they don't feel prepared. We want to make sure that once we're done with the program, or once they're done with the program and we are backing out, that they're able to pay rent, they're comfortable, they are just ready to move forward.
Great. Yeah, I love this empowerment approach that I hear about very often. That's definitely, I feel like it's the best approach that you can take with a client, especially because you're not always going to be there. You're there for support, but it's only temporary.
Right.
But definitely, what kind of obstacles do you see, especially right now? We all know 2020, so many things have been happening right now. We have the pandemic, we have, students doing e-learning and making it more difficult for even people to go to their work or keep their jobs. So what type of obstacles have you seen? And I know you talked about how you help with these types of things. You help with helping people with their credit scores, or even establishing job skills. What other types of obstacles do you see with your clients?
Yeah, so again, we've just had this past year so far. And those first several months were kind of getting everything prepared, getting staff hired, getting all of our documentation in line, all of our paperwork. And so when it came time and we were ready to actually house clients, the pandemic hit. So I don't really have a point of reference of what it was like trying to house people before that. I just know how it's been for us since March. And some of the main challenges we've faced, pandemic specific, are basically just getting in touch with people, trying to get a hold of landlords, trying to get them to call you back. It might be weeks before you get anyone to call you back. We learned that landlords some of them changed their requirements. So they might have made it more challenging. You have to have more stable income or more income to be eligible. Some required a higher credit score. These are all things that are challenging for our clients. So that was just an added barrier. We also had a lot of shelters had to work at half capacity and weren't able to take in new clients during that time. So when we did get referrals of clients who were literally homeless, we had nowhere to refer them to while trying to find them housing. So that was difficult at times if they, trying to work with them on finding temporary housing, while we were able to find them a more long-term plan. And then also our clients face the same thing a lot of people have in this pandemic, as far as losing their jobs, losing sources of income because they weren't receiving child support anymore, losing childcare. So that impacted their ability to go to work because the daycares were closed. So it just was kind of a snowball effect of all of those factors that play at once, just created a lot of challenges. And, the individuals that we work with struggle with, being a single parent and maintaining a steady income, getting child care, improving credit, doing all of these things anyways are challenges. So at a time like this, it was just more so.
That's really interesting. That's a whole lot that's going on right now, as we all know. But it seems like in the midst of this pandemic, there's all these obstacles that these clients are facing. So on top of everything else, on top of them being in a domestic violence situation and trying to flee and trying to get back on their feet, there's this whole pandemic going on that's making things more difficult. And this program started in the midst of the pandemic. So at the same time, we're trying to get everything situated and everything sorted out. So
Yeah.
that must be, I don't know what the word is. That must be a little wild.
Exciting.
But you all are doing it. You all are doing it. And we're all very proud of you, because there's definitely people that are being helped by this program.
Yeah. Yeah. Our staff has definitely had some challenges to face, but everyone's shifted pretty well and acclimated to just kind of learning as we go and seeing, what we can do as far as being the best advocates for our participants. And really, our housing specialist works very hard to be a good advocate and liaison with landlords in the community to truly explain the benefits of this program for those that we serve, but also for the landlords, and really trying to do a lot of networking and building those positive relationships that they are more willing to work with us. And so it's a lot of networking in that sense too. And then our case manager has been working very hard also on the side with the clients, as far as from day one, starting on repairing credit and really noticing how important that is to getting and maintaining permanent housing, as well as getting out of debt to kind of stop that cycle of being behind on bills, working on budgeting, how to spend wisely. So there's a whole lot that goes into that. And they pretty much hit the ground running as soon as we get a client referred to us, because there's a lot to be done to help them be successful in moving forward when they're done with our program.
Yeah, that's really interesting how you all work with the landlords, because sometimes it could be difficult. Somebody might not have a high enough credit score or high enough income to be eligible. But once you have already established that relationship with the landlords, then they have more trust in you. Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I can relate with how you said that we just kind of have to adapt. There's a pandemic, there's everything going on.
Right.
I think before we started this tea interview, I told you, I don't know how many times this week I've said, we'll see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how this goes. Everything is new to us right now. So we're just going to give it a shot. We're going to try our best.
Right.
And see how this goes.
Right.
So thankfully it's been going well.
Yeah. And a lot of our conversations and meetings also go in the way of, well, that didn't work. So what do we want to do now? And just kind of trying to figure it out. And then we're more prepared for the next, situation that's similar to what we just experienced. So.
Exactly. And you have had, you are the programs manager, so you've had experience in the past. And like you said, you've been working with DV. So all the experience definitely helps.
Oh, absolutely.
So I do want to shift the topic a little bit, because I found this really interesting when we were talking about the common misconceptions of homelessness. A lot of these people are facing homelessness, and for those who are watching, they may have a certain view or a certain misconception that homeless is a certain way. So can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I think there's lots of misconceptions. I think one of the biggest ones is that just this idea that the homeless population is this person, sleeping behind a dumpster or under the bridge. There's a lot more of the homeless population that's very hidden, and a lot of that population is women with children, and that looks different for everybody. And it could mean living with family and friends, 3 families to a 1-bedroom apartment, or, couch surfing, sleeping in a different living room every other week, sleeping in a vehicle. That's unfortunately very common. And, sleeping at work. People get pretty creative with how they how they keep shelter. So I think it's something that people don't realize how prevalent it is because it's not in their face. It's not something you see, but I think it is a lot more hidden than a lot of people realize. And, when it comes to the survivors of domestic violence in particular, one, I guess, stigma you could say that we often see when trying to communicate with landlords about our program is this idea that coming from a domestic violence background makes you a troublemaker. They'll say, I just don't want to deal with that. Nope. I don't want any problems on my property. I don't want to work with people like that, So it's a lot of work on our end to be educating them and really advocating for our clients to let them know that's not the reality. This is not what it really looks like. This is what they're working towards, So that's definitely what we've seen as well.
As a community educator, I definitely advocate for education. I feel like, especially with domestic violence, people just need to get informed. People have misconceptions about domestic violence just as they do about homelessness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like you mentioned with homelessness, a lot of people do picture if a person's homeless, they're living out in the streets, they don't have food, they don't have a place to stay. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they are on borderline there, where if they do leave their friend's house, or if they, they're using this little bit of support that they have, but that doesn't mean that they don't need help or that they aren't homeless. Right. And so there's a lot of homeless people out there that we're not aware of.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about how a person can seek services. Let's say somebody is listening to this video right now and they're saying, maybe this program or this agency can benefit me. Mm-hmm. So how can they go about finding out more information?
So all of our contact information is on the agency website. And if they're looking for any services, obviously they can call the agency. Housing specific, if they're looking for emergency shelter, they can call the hotline. They can also then be assessed for the other housing programs as well, and get connected with the proper individual, which might be myself, it might be the case manager that can answer any questions anytime, even if somebody's not sure if they would want to be in a housing program, or they're not sure if they would be ready to leave a situation. There's nothing wrong with having that conversation and just really learning what their options are and seeing what would work for them.
Okay, great. So one last thing before we go on to the comments, I would like to remind all the viewers to go ahead and comment any questions that you may have. We're going to get to you right after this. If you think of any questions after the video is posted, we'll continue answering questions on the comments. So feel free to ask any questions you may have about this program, the Rapid Rehousing Program, any questions for myself or for Rebecca. So this is the perfect time to do so. But do you have any last words, anything you would want to tell our viewers?
I mean, honestly, and I feel like a lot of programs agree with us, but we're always so grateful to everybody in the community that supports us. The donations that we get go directly to the families we work with. So we get to see the appreciation that they have. So we just really appreciate that support and ongoing interest in what we're doing.
That must be an extraordinary feeling to know exactly what it is a family needs and to be able to give it to them. Mm-hmm. We do have a list of things that we need at the moment. So if anybody wants to donate and doesn't know exactly what it is that is needed, you can always call the agency and we can provide you with that list. Now that list is constantly changing. So whatever it is, you can always email us, comment online, call the agency, and we definitely have a list of the things that our clients are in need of at the moment. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'll go ahead and go over to Zach to see if we have any questions in the comments.
All right, we have one question so far. This one will be for Rebecca. This is about the phrase you were using, literally homeless. So can you give a little bit more insight into the spectrum of experiencing homelessness and how the program funders view these different categories, and how does that impact clients or even potential clients?
Absolutely. So we're funded by HUD. Both of our housing programs are, and HUD has different definitions for, I guess you'd say, the categories of homelessness. It sounds kind of rough sometimes because we're not trying to categorize how homeless people are, but that's just how they determine funding and eligibility, depending on the programs. So literally homeless means that you're an individual who is in an emergency shelter or living somewhere not meant for human habitation, a vehicle, an abandoned building. And so when I say that about transitional housing, that means that for them to be eligible to come into our transitional program, they have to be literally homeless right before. So they, again, would have to be staying in a shelter or in a vehicle. Literally homeless does not count a motel stay unless it's being paid for by another agency. It does not count if they are still living with the abuser, because they're considered housed at that time, even though they are trying to plan to flee. So that's one of the biggest differences with our rapid rehousing, which is great, because that is a group that we are so glad we can serve now, is those that aren't comfortable leaving and going to shelter, but feel like that's their only option. You know, now we can work with them on safely leaving into their own residence. So yeah, HUD has very specific definitions of the different types of homelessness.
Honestly, when I heard about this rapid rehousing program and the difference in requirements, that somebody doesn't have to be literally homeless to enter or to be qualified into the program, you know, I was relieved. I was excited about it, because this can also serve as an obstacle to leaving, is that they're not allowed into, you know, another shelter because they technically do have a home, although it's with their abuser with which they're trying to leave. Right. So with the rapid rehousing, if they want to leave their abuser, they're accepted into the rapid rehousing program, and we're able to work with them. So I did find that really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's a unfortunate decision and an extremely difficult one to make, to say, am I willing to, you know, do I stay here somewhere where I don't feel safe, or do I take my children to this unknown shelter where we also might not be safe? You know, it's a common misconception too that shelters are just, you know, cots lined up in an empty room. A lot of the shelters we work with are not like that at all, but I can completely understand that that would be a very difficult decision to have to make. So yeah, absolutely, that is a barrier to leaving and trying to find other housing options.
Yeah, thank you for that response. Do we have any more questions, Zach?
Yes, we've got one more that just came in, and it's for Rebecca as well. And how can someone help your program, and what are some of the needs of the rapid rehousing program?
That's a good question. The needs change regularly. We don't really know what a family's needs are. It changes, you know, changes pretty constantly. So when our case manager gets to do these home visits, you know, she walks in and we'll be having a conversation with this family that, you know, we'll tell her all of these things that happened, you know, that whatever the crisis was, what all of a sudden they need. So it changes daily. We can't really predict it. We do know that when pretty much all of our families that we've been able to help find housing always need furniture. But again, with limited resources and confidentiality, it's not as easy just to drop off furniture that you want to donate to them. So we find it easier to work with gift cards, so that when our case manager is working with the family and we're meeting with them that day to sign the lease and do all that, we find out they have nothing, we can give them a gift card to Walmart or, you know, a local furniture store or someplace that they can go and pick out their own items. And it's easier for us to provide that immediately instead of trying to arrange something, you know, weeks in advance, because it's often last minute that we're finding out that these are the needs that they have. So gift cards are always a huge help. I know I mentioned networking with landlords is extremely important. So if anybody has connections with landlords that you can put in a good word for us, you know, things like that. We're always looking to build those relationships in the community as well to, you know, better serve our clients.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of, we talked about empowerment. So I feel like giving somebody a gift card is actually letting them take over themselves.
Right.
Here, go get yourself whatever it is that you need instead of me giving you your items.
Right. Right.
So it's definitely another form of that.
Right.
Any more questions, Zach?
Yes, we've got two more if we can take them.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Can a person sign up to be on the response list when there's a need?
Sure. I think that is something that's already in the works. Do you mean like, can somebody sign up to be contacted if there's an immediate need that a family has? Am I understanding that right? What do you think?
I wonder
Yes,
what anybody
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that is something that is in the works right now with the outreach department and you know, the team that handles volunteers and donors. There's an ongoing wish list, and I think there's also a list that individuals can sign up to be those emergency contacts, if you will, when we have last minute requests. Because again, you know, I always just say gift cards because it's the only thing I can think of, but we'll get last minute requests for things like, you know, medication, they can't afford their prescription, or a kid needs glasses. It's just so random and we can't always predict it. So it's great to have those people that we can reach out to get that urgent response.
That's amazing that, you know, we actually have those people who are on call and are, you know, ready to be able to help.
Yeah, again, we are so grateful to everybody in the community that supports us the way they do.
Yeah, any help goes a long way. We can go ahead and go to the next question, Zach.
Okay. So Rebecca mentioned that the program has a case manager. How does case management aid folks experiencing both homelessness and domestic violence?
Okay, great. So the case manager has all sorts of roles. There's, you know, the roles of just, you know, focusing on financial stability, which involves all sorts of things. It can be working with them on their goals to, you know, further their education. If they want to get a certification in something that can get them a better paying job, or if they want to brush up on their job skills and, you know, learn, you know, techniques to become more marketable. Those are things that the case manager will focus on to help the clients really gain that skill, so that again they can take that moving forward to any job interview they have. They can learn to job search more mindfully, as far as not just taking the first job that they see, but really trying to look into their skill sets they have, look into their own strengths and see what could I really be good at, what could I really bring to an employer, and then using that to build on and really gain their own confidence, but also find better jobs. And then looking at their budget and seeing how to, again, spend more wisely, how to save effectively, how to connect them with all the appropriate benefits that they might be able to receive. You know, she helps them get childcare, gets them connected to all sorts of resources that can help with whatever their specific needs are. And then we also do, you know, the case manager oftentimes is the one that will find out pretty early on the emotional impact that the individual is experiencing too, because domestic violence and homelessness are traumatic experiences. And so to expect somebody to just leave and start their life over and get a job and raise their children and take care of all these things while still dealing with that trauma, that's extremely overwhelming. So we are also able to refer any clients in the Rapid program to our counselors in the agency as well to get that support throughout their time in the program.
That's amazing. It really sounds like they have an extensive list of job duties.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty much whatever comes our way.
Yeah, and Letitia mentioned in the previous episode that, you know, sometimes the counselors and everybody's job duties kind of overlap, or one person would have to do counseling, another person would have to do case management, although they try to stay in with their tasks, but it happens.
Yeah.
Like you said, sometimes they're the first to realize that this person, you know, has experienced trauma.
Yeah, and our case managers and our housing specialists The housing specialist is one of the first individuals in the program for the participants to meet. So once they meet them, think about it, that's their main person to go to with all their questions and issues and things that they need. Same with case management. Once she's doing the home visits, that's that one person in their home that they're going to tell all the issues to, all the struggles they're having. So it is just going to be everything that individual or the family is dealing with, and it's just trying to sort through all that and see the best ways that we can support them.
That's amazing. Do we have any more questions in the comments, Zach?
Those were all the questions, so I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, good. Really good questions, really good information. Before we finish this up, I really want to thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for being a part of this interview. Everything that you provided us with is definitely useful information that hopefully somebody out there can actually listen to and benefit from.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're hoping to get from this. I also have some information from development. So just a reminder that Keeping Dreams Alive silent auction, which will include the Benches for Change, will go live next Saturday on September 26th, along with the gala. The grand raffle chances for 2 round-trip Southwest tickets are available now. So they are 1 chance for $20 and 6 chances for $100. So on the comments, you'll find information on how you can go about buying these raffle tickets, as well as you can also find them on our website. Okay, so please tune in next week, every single Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We'll have a What's the Tea episode at the same place, same time, but a different tea. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.